Hello everyone, and welcome back to another WARNO tier list, as today we're gonna go over Recon Infantry. We covered a couple of these in the Special Forces one already, but a good couple of them have changed prices or got added to the game since then. So yeah, let's go over all of them, as the other Recon Infantry haven't been touched yet in any tier lists, and they are quite a big bunch here, as you can see, so we might be here for a while. And we're gonna start with the West Germans, and with a unit it is pretty solid with the Fanspeer. Special Forces Recon, 90 points, as it got an AT added lately, and that keeps it as a pretty solid unit. I would put that as an A tier Recon unit. 6 hit points, MP5s and HK go decently together. The sniper rifle gives them decent stress on the mid-range as well, but you usually don't want to fight with them. Like, that's the thing with the GSR units. They are priced for both a bit their fighting capabilities, but more so for their recon capabilities. And that is always a bit of an issue, because they cost you extra for the fighting capability when you actually kind of usually just want to have the radar out of them, or better spotting, but it still can be helpful in some situation, and the forward deploy helps 5th Panzer out quite a bit as well, that you can shut down some light vehicles or so with them getting up there and getting a law in there. But yeah, in general, still a really solid recon unit that gets you a good job done. Just it costs you a bit too much for quite S tier. And then we have the Fallschirmjäger B1. That is a fantastic little unit as well. That got nerfed lately. I would still put it on the lower end of S tier though, as this unit just smacks. It is a Special Forces unit. It has shock. It has forward deploy. And it has a lot of firepower. The MP5 and the HK21 go pretty well together, as the light machine gun can be fired in the CQC ranges and on the move. So that is pretty helpful. And the submachine gun really deal a lot of damage with 7 of them. Plus you get the satchel charge, so you're really a beast in house-to-house fighting. And you have a really strong AT weapon as well, the Panzerfaust 3, that can one-shot a lot of vehicles out there and two-shot most of them. So the Panzerfaust 3 really goes hard here as well, making this a really nice S tier unit, strong unit for sure. And yeah, the 5-point nerf moved it from high S tier to low S tier, but it's still an S tier unit nonetheless. Fernspieler Scharfschützen, those are your snipers for the Germans. Issue is, they cost similar to other snipers because they're Special Forces, but they only have an 850 meter range sniper rifle. And for that, a 2-man squadron with a sniper rifle is not that great actually. And really, the price being the same as for other snipers, whilst they have lower range, is not great. The Special Forces trait doesn't compensate for that. And because they get spotted most of the time when they start firing, and then they just get shot and killed. Whilst other snipers, they start shooting from so far away that they don't get spotted, and then they can deal a good amount of damage and then reposition or just finish off the target, and that doesn't work with the Fernspieler Scharfschützen. So C tier it is here. They are still a nice recon unit with the extra stealth if you keep them quiet, but that's not what you want to pay the 35 points for. And yeah, their killing power is just not quite there. Fernspieler Fallschirmjäger Aufklärer. Next, those are decent as well. I would put them into A tier. They cost a bit extra, but they have forward deploy. And a lot of second Panzergrenadier players just only use these instead of the Fallschirmjägers, as they have the Panzerfaust 3 as well. So they're a good AT unit up there as well that can one-shot all the recon vehicles that could come driving by, whilst costing you a good bit less, and the killing power is not great, but it wins against other small recon squads that get just deploy next to them, so that is fine as well. And they're really just there as an early welcoming committee for enemy racing in units, and then outside of that are just your normal Aufklärers, whilst the rest of your second Panzergrenadier units catch up, and that can work out quite nicely. So an AT unit here for the forward deploy with the Panzerfaust 3 combo. A really solid unit, but quite pricey for a 4-man squad, a recon squad. And no Special Forces on the West German Fallschirmjägers, so they don't really win infantry fights on their own. SAK next, which lost their shock. I still don't quite get why. They still have a decent killing power with the sniper rifle plus MP5s, but without an AT weapon, without any extra traits or so, it's just a B tier recon unit here for 40 points, because 40 points is already on the higher end. And like we will get to some other recon squads that are a good bit cheaper and they have a bit more utility. They still do their fighting job decently, but without the shock trait, they are not the CQC menace that they had been before. So B tier it is only here. I think before it was an A tier, now it's a B tier recon unit. It is still pretty good when it comes to the fighting part, but it doesn't do anything else anymore. It is still priced to fight. It's not just priced to be sitting around and being a recon unit, so you still have to get something out of them to really make them work. So B tier here for the SAK Aufklärers. Then we have the Jäger Aufklärers, which are still one of the beefiest recon squads around. 9 hit points. And they got a Panzerfaust 44, so they can shoot vehicles close by as well. And the 9 hit points really is the important thing, and what makes them A tier in my eyes, as that means you can really push them in front of your main forces, and they can spot things without being immediately killed, and then you lose line of sight again. They can keep the eye on the enemy whilst taking fire, and that is such an important feature for a recon squad on the offense. And few units do it as well as the Jäger Aufklärer. So the Jäger Aufklärer here is still an A tier unit, even though it went down from 11 to 9 hit points. But yeah, 9 hit points is still, as I said, more than 90% of the recon squads here. And that really makes them a solid little unit. The Jäger Aufklärers here in A tier, really nice one. Then we come to the normal Aufklärers, and those are a solid B tier unit. They do their job, they have a AT weapon, so light vehicles close by can be hit. They are 4-man, they are affordable, cheaper than the SAK, for example, and yeah, they just spot for you. So, Aufklärers here, Panzerfaust 44, mid-range AT weapon for these kind of units, and yeah, it does the job decently here. You got the normal Aufklärers here doing a decent job. Fallschirmjäger Aufklärer, a good bit more expensive, but the forward deploy plus the Panzerfaust 3 compensate a bit more in my eyes. Then we come to the BGS, which are changed a lot since their pure MP5 days. And they now got an AT weapon, which is a good AT weapon. Like 675 meters of range with 18 penetration is great. They still have the reservist trait, and that lowers all those abilities a good bit with higher aim time, lower accuracy. So they are not quite as good as the stats card makes them look. I still think they are a solid A tier little recon squad, because they are also a 9-man hit point squad. So they can take the fire and find the enemy for you. Plus, bringing an AT weapon with them is nice as well. Just that they get stunned down and they don't quite have the killing power of the Jäger Aufklärer, for example, with their deficits from the reservist trait. And their weird weapon loadout, that also means that they aren't really a king on any range. But yeah, they are a solid unit nonetheless. BGS still, since they added the AT weapon, a really solid squad again. So I enjoy using them. I think 8 here, just behind the Jäger Aufklärers, is a good spot for them. And then we have the BGS Streife, the girl power unit, that has been reduced to 5-man, but they still all have MP5s, and it's only a 20-point unit. I think it's a really solid B tier little recon unit there. It gets your spotting done for cheap. That is really nice. It has 5 hit points, which is 1 extra compared to the average 4-man squad of recon, but doesn't really want to fight, and it isn't that strong in those CQC scenarios anymore. Though, yeah, you don't really need that out of the 20-point recon squad. You can just push those around for recon, and it does that efficiently for 20 points. It doesn't do anything else, but it does its recon job, and that is pretty important for a recon unit, so B tier here is fine. So that's it with the West Germans. Let's move on to the Frenchies. There we start with the Sniper SAS, which is a pretty decent sniper unit, as they have a long-range sniper, and they still cost you only 35 points compared to these guys down here, and they do the job. They can shoot enemies from 1,250 meters, and when they stand still, really do a good amount of damage there before the enemy starts seeing them, especially if it's just a normal infantry unit and not a recon infantry unit, and then you just can wipe out half the squad before they even have a chance of seeing you and stun them down so much. So Sniper SAS does the sniper job good, and yeah, the sniper trait also makes you good as a recon unit. That's the good bit about it. Either you keep them from firing and just have them as a really stealthy recon unit, or you let them fire and just murder enemy infantry squad that come close by. And that's what good sniper units are about. And the Sniper SAS really is one of those. Then we have the Para SAS, which is a French Special Forces unit here. And the Para SAS is a really good one as well. And I would say it's a high A tier unit. It doesn't have AT, so yeah, it goes around here. The lack of AT keeps it from being an absolute beast, but with smoke grenades, 8 hit points, and the light machine guns that allow it to fire on the move, and then the satchel charges that also really make it kill in CQC, it is a really versatile unit. The smoke grenades are something that we have not seen as much as I hoped we would see when they got introduced in top level play. I hope we will see more of that. I believe they can change a lot about how infantry plays can be done, and the Para SAS are on the forefront of that, and they allow the 11th here to really have some shenanigans pushing forward with their recon squadrons, like having one or two more infantry squads close by, smoking them off, getting those pushes in without taking fire, and then really doing the damage there with the satchel charges with the special force shock troop. And yeah, 75 points. They don't have a GSR, but they are really, really good anti-infantry unit that can protect itself from getting killed, and that is a really key factor here. The only lacking thing, as I said, is the lack of AT, but you only have so many weapon slots, and the Power SAS does what it needs to do still really well. Then we have another sniper unit, the Treur de Elite, which is 30 points for a sniper unit, and I think on snipers, the special forces, yeah, the extra speed and so on, and the slightly better damage matters, but I'm not sure if it matters 5 points. So I would actually say they are slightly better here than the Sniper SAS. For 30 points, do the same job. Not much to talk about there. Then the next Special Forces unit of the French, the Dragon Para. This one is a B tier GSR unit because you don't want, like, it's still priced for fighting, but it doesn't have really the capabilities to fight. Like, it can delete a small infantry squadrons and run into it by accident with special forces and 6 weapons, but it doesn't have any extra weapon, unlike all the other GSR units. Doesn't have smoke, doesn't have satchel charge, doesn't have an AT weapon, so it's a bit more limited, but it still gives you the GSR, and that thing keeps it in really high B tier, maybe low A tier, like somewhere around there. The Dragon Para, it's a solid GSR unit. It's just not really much more, but Fifth doesn't need much more because Fifth already has a fantastic recon tab and a fantastic deck in general at the moment. So Dragon Para in B tier, high B tier is totally fine. Then we come to the French Eclair, and that is a really good 4-man recon squad, the best of those. And I would put that here just in front of the Aufklärers. It has the better AT weapon with more range and more damage. 15 damage, 750 meter range with the LRAC. That really makes them strong. And yeah, they pay the same price as the Aufklärer, which with the Panzer 44, Faust 44 have a weaker weapon, but all the other weapons are identical, so they really do their job well. And then we have the Marine, version of this, and they are a really strong recon squad as well. They have another smoke grenade, and they have an Apilas. They don't have shock, but they have resolute. Yeah, no special forces, so that's the 10-point difference. But they have an Apilas, and the Apilas is one of the best AT weapons in the game. 21 damage, 750-meter range, together with the Russian RPG-29. That's the top end, and they are just phenomenal for 65 points. Smoke grenades, helping them to get out of dodge if they ever miss with the Apilas, or the enemy gets to see you a bit further away. And yep, that is just a great combo. 8 hit points also means they survive. 65 points is still on the affordable end if you compare them to the special forces unit here, like the Fallschirmjäger B1 and so on. So yep, those Marines are just really good for the French. And then we got the Para Eckler, 40 points for deploy. I would put that slightly behind. Like the fourth deploy on the 4-man squad doesn't matter as much, and the 5 points is a difference, but it is not really a big difference compared to the other guys here. Still does a job when needed. And then we got the reserve Hitlers. Those are a 20-point unit with an AT weapon, and that can't be underestimated. So yeah, they have an LRAC 73, which is weaker, but it's still around. Yeah, no, it only has 500 meters, but it's a 20-point unit. So it does the same as the BGS Strifer, but sometimes if it gets pushed by a light vehicle, it actually damages and kills the light vehicle. Like, at least damaging, and sometimes killing it. And that is more than you can hope out of most 20-point units. And yeah, really, 152nd Recon Tab is not their weakness. And Recon Infantry. Reserve Eclairs here. It's still not an amazing unit. It's still, but it does for a 20-point unit exactly what you need a 20-point Recon unit to do. I would actually put it in front of the snipers here, next to the Dragon Para, and we really have the French bunching up here at this point in that section. Then we have the Belgians with their one recon unit that currently is in the game so far. And that is only 30 points, but it has a Law A1 with only 11 damage. So that thing can't kill much. And I would say that the capability of actually killing something is important here for these guys. So I would put that behind the normal outflares. The 11 to 14 is really the difference, because it doesn't one-shot anything really with armor, and that is a key factor. Plus the accuracy is also not that great. So yeah, we go into B tier here. That brings us to the American, and they have a good bunch of recon units as well. Starting with some special forces here again, and going in with the Delta, which are just absolutely amazing. They are fan-freaking-tastic. They are special forces now. Oh, I really didn't like them when they first came around, but since then, they got the cargo stuff, and that makes just all the difference. They have a sniper rifle in a normal squad that deals out a lot of damage over long range. They have a lot of firepower on 850-meter range already with the sniper rifle and the light guns, and if the enemy gets into 500-meter range, you just delete them. And the Carl Gustav also means that you have a 750-meter range standoff for enemy vehicles, and that is really strong for a forward deploy unit, and it makes all the difference for one of first openers, and keeps the division from being really on the bottom of divisions, and makes it into kind of a low mid-tier division in my eyes. And that's just based on the change on the deltas for the most part, because your openers are so much stronger nowadays than they had been in the past, when these guys just couldn't be rolled over by any kind of vehicle. And yeah, Delta is now a really, really strong opener. Next, a Special Forces unit, the PSSEB, the Berlin Command Special Forces here. And they are a good bunch as well. I would put them around here next to these guys. They actually would put them a bit behind. They have the Satchel Charges, they're a bit better CQC than the Marines, but they have the weaker AT weapon. With special forces, they can kill a bit better, but they also have fewer hit points. The extra special trait, though, really helps when you bunch them up with some cheap trash infantry, which Berlin Command has a good bunch of, because that means that your special forces guys don't get hit first, and that means your special forces guys can actually deal out the damage with the MP5s and get into the CQC range in a good couple of situations. So PSSEB really a solid unit can really delete on CQC. You need to get them there though, and they are priced to do that damage. But with the 84 and the MP5s, they are doing that both against infantry and vehicles and the satchel charge. So PSSEB, a really good recon unit as well. LRS is next, and that is a good special forces recon unit as well. And these guys also have the GSR, so they do the job there as well. And in comparison to the French Bears, they have a weak law, but they cost 10 points less. And yeah, they have a sniper rifle as well, so I would put them here in front of the French Bear. Doing a really good job here. 80 points, only 5 points compared to the Dragon Para. For law 1, yes, it's a horrible AT weapon, but it is an AT weapon that can keep off light vehicles from you, and that is pretty important sometimes. So yeah, LRS here. Then we come to the sniper, which is a really solid two-man sniper squad because they have 2 sniper rifles. So they basically get the good sniper and then the sniper of the French player on top. And on 850 meters, that just means they're the lead machine. They are priced extra for it by now, and that keeps them from moving up higher. But for 40 points, you need to get some damage done with them, but it's not that hard to get the damage done. So I would put them in high beat here now. Decent invisible unit. It's just that it's 2-man squad that can get killed by anything flying by. For 40 points is still quite pricey, but they are a delete machine if enemy infantry doesn't get on top of them immediately. So they are a really solid unit with that. And then we got the scout, which is your basic 4-man recon squad. It costs you 25 points, and it doesn't have any AT. And again, 25 points is for the same capabilities that a BGS rifle has for 20 points. It's not amazing. So yeah, 25-point recon squad here going into B tier. Maybe a bit more killing power, but not really actually, even compared to the 5 MP5s there. So yeah, scouts just going into B tier. They do the job, but you don't really feel great when you're using them, but recon just needs to spot for you. So then we come to the Aero Scouts GSR. That is a unit that I felt really good about back in the day, but I have fallen off on them. Like, yes, they are a recon squad that is chunky. They are a recon squad that can defend itself lightly with the law, and they have the ground surveillance radar. But all of that kind of throws them into different directions. Like, the law 1 is not good enough that you really just can brawl with enemy tanks like Apilas does. Can't just take them head on and so on. So that is usually for a flank protection recon unit. The GSR means you actually kind of don't want to fight with them at all. You just want to have them sitting around and spotting the enemy. And the 13 men mean that you actually want to push them forward. And in some situations, you can have them rotating through all of these 3 roles at once. But often enough, you just want to have them for one of those roles, and then they are way overpriced. And that is really the issue. Like, how often do you get to use the one recon squad for all 3 roles after another, so that the 100 points that you pay for it actually pay off? When you could just buy basically 2 recon squads, or even 3 recon squads, that do that all on their own. And you have each for one of those roles. So I was really high on them early on. I think by now they are decently overpriced, and I actually would just put them here into B tier as well. Yeah, because 100 points is really a lot, and they don't have the forward deploy of the LRS or French player, which are super important on these kind of units getting the early on positions. They come in the helicopter, making them even pricier, and all of that just really means that the Aero Scouts GSRs have fallen off for me. And ever since the Deltas have become so good, I just replaced them in my decks. The Airborne Scouts, those have an AT4. They have forward deployment. Yep, they are better than the Para here. Uh, so yeah, that's where we put them. That's where we put them. They still cost you extra. Actually, I would actually put them around here. Yeah, the 84 is a solid weapon with the 17 damage. Having that on a light squadron is nice. Can kill a tank sometimes, and can one-shot most IOVs out there. So that is quite nice. Aero Scouts, that's a 65.10 hit point squad with a law that can be pushed forward. It pays 10 points extra for one extra hit point basically, and shock trade, but shock trade is not that amazing on a unit without SMGs or TNT, so or flamethrower weapons, so it's not that important. And they do their job though, and they are the chunky one. Like that's basically what you use instead of the GSR unit, and then you bring one normal recon unit, and then yeah, they basically have the same push them forward capabilities that the Hero Scout GSR have, but for 35 points less, and that is pretty important. So yeah, Hero Scouts here going into A tier. Then we have the CV. CV has been buffed lately. Before I had it in lower B tier. Now I would put them in higher B tier, as I still believe that the trait they have is somewhat underutilized. Int is testing them out a lot and is having some decent success with these guys, and I believe there is a good bit of success to have with them. It was just that 50 points for it was maybe a bit too pricey because you need to get multiple of them. But now 10 points less, 40 points, that's actually where you can start pushing them around. Like on the baseline there, just normal scouts with a slightly better rifle. So they pay 15 points extra now instead of double the price for the extra utility of the trait, and that can come in handy for triangulation and just figuring out where the enemy could be. It's just that 35th currently in general is not a great deck, because otherwise you might see that tested more. But yeah, CV here, solid B tier unit, and I believe we will see a lot more out of this in the future. And yeah, let me know down below what you think of the CV and where would you put it. I believe the opinions will be big. Like some will see it as useless because it's hard to use sometimes. We have seen some good use cases for the trade in general. You just need to get a decent amount of network or a good amount of micro out of these guys to really help out figuring the triangulation of the enemy units out. And then we have the National Guard Scouts, which are your 20-point recon squad. They are reservists as well. They have one less hit point. They have the sniper rifle, but one is better in CQC, one is a bit better on mid range. And then this one has one less hit point, so BGS Strifer wins, but just barely. 20-point recon squad is 20-point recon squad in the end still, and that does the spawning for you. Then we got the National Guard Scouts with 8 hit points, and those 40 points, same price as these guys here. I believe that goes into lower A tier as a recon unit that you can just put forward. The law can be helpful, and yep, they eat some damage, and then they get hit, and they spot the enemy for you whilst pushing forward. They are getting stunned down quickly, so they get slowed down and so on with the reservist trait similar to the BGS. They don't have a great AT weapon like the BGS, and they have one less hit point, so 40 points is a decently fair price point, but they still get the job done there. And then the National Guard Scouts with the Dragon. It is a Dragon 1 on a reservist unit that gets done quickly. The range on it is not amazing, the damage is not amazing, and they now pay 5 points extra compared to the guys up here. And I think that puts them down a good bit. Before they were just next to this. The Law versus the Dragon 1 is kinda similar in my eyes at the moment, with the high rate of fire of the Law being quite helpful, and then the Dragon being decently helpful when the range actually matters, but as I said, with the low accuracy, especially inflated by how fast they get stressed out and get even lower in the accuracy and so on, the National Guard Scouts Dragon, uh, they are only a B tier unit now. They've 8 hit points is still nice for 45 points, but it's not as amazing. Then we come to the East Germans, and there we start with another Scharfschütze, and it's another one of the bad ones. The C tier Fencbeer Scharfschützen, as those are 850-meter range once again, and that is just not that useful on sniper unit. We talked about it before. I just don't quite feel that. Then we got the Spezialaufklärer, and those basically do what the Dragon Power does, but they just get a free RPG. And that RPG even has good range now. So yeah, they're basically also like the Fenspray and the Sharp. Like, well, the Fenspray have a bit better CQC firepower, and the others not really. And they do that even with a better RPG, you could argue now, with the RPG 18 with 13 damage, for 5 points less. So the Spezialaufklärers still a really good 4 deploy recon unit with GSR. And actually, I think that kind of pushed them up to S tier. Yeah, Spezialaufklärer here. Let's push them into a low S tier. And yeah, East Germans having the best GSR unit here, helping out. Then we got another special forces for the East Germans with the Wachaufklärer. The 675 meters on the RPG 22 is solid. Yeah, they are 60-man point squad with special forces. They don't really excel with the special forces with the shock trade, but yeah, with the sniper rifles, you don't really want to push them into shock trade distance, but they still pay extra for it. It is still a 6-man squad here. I would put them into higher B tier. Like, they can kill, and they are still a special forces unit, but they are on the weaker end for a special forces unit. The RPG is solid and all, but they don't have the GSR or anything. And yeah, they are same size as the Dragon Power. They have the AT weapon over it, but they have a bit less firepower, and they don't have the GSR, so that matters a good bit. Then we got the Sprengtauchers and the Einsatzgruppe, the special Fallschirmjäger ones. The Fallschirmjäger Einsatzgruppe is a solid A tier unit here, though end of A tier, but I would argue, yeah, same hit points and similar loadout, but they have a bit more firepower with the M, and they obviously are a special forces unit, and disguised unit as well that can help out a couple of times, though not as easy as with the PSSEBs. You don't have as many throw around infantry units in 4th that you just want to keep around them, so it doesn't quite matter as much. But the Fallschirmjäger Einsatzgruppe is still a good 8 hit point unit. And then the Sprengtaucher, I would argue before, was weaker than the Einsatzgruppe, but lately they got smoke. And that, I think, pushes them around here now. Actually, yeah, let's put them in between here, because defense barriers are quite pricey nowadays. And the smoke really helps them out getting their job with the TNT done. And helping out also in combination with other infantry units to just get them across. And that is pretty important in 4th, because 4th has a lot of good recon unit. And a lot of good infantry units with the normal Fallschirmjägers as well. So the smoke here, a key factor to keep these guys alive, which is always good for a recon unit. And yeah, with 8 hit points, they also are pretty chunky. TNT means they can win CQC fights, and with the smoke they get easier into them. So yeah, a good AT unit here. And then we come to the KDA Aufklärer. That's a 6-man 20-point recon unit. And I would say that goes out of these guys here. Basically just BGS Typhoon better. 20 points for a cheap recon unit that has a decent firepower, actually can win against some 4-man squads on a decent basis, and it's just a 20-point unit that can come around and give you recon. So nothing to sneeze at, nothing super special either. And if you compare it to the Reserve-Aufklärer, which do the same, but for 3 less hit points, for only 3 hit points. Yes, they don't have the Reservisten trait, but that doesn't really matter, so these guys just go on the end of B tier here. They are still a 20-point recon unit though, but only 3 hit points. Could maybe argue maybe pushing them to 15 points and really make them work for the Rügener, as Rügener could use some buffs, but I'm not sure if you really want to push them that far. 15 points is a really cheap unit, but yeah, it could be considered. Then mod Outplayers, which are a decent 7 hit point unit. They have an AT weapon. I would put them on the higher end of B tier. And I actually just here in the middle. Yeah, they're a 7-man squad. They have an AT weapon. 50 points is a fair price for that. And they are decently survivable, but not super survivable. And the firepower is also not so that they can trump over all the other infantry units out there. So yeah, I would put them around there. And we got the normal Outclassers for the East Germans. They have an RPG 18 that is not amazing, so they just go behind the Para Eclairs here. It's still one of the solid 35-point wonder. It has an AT weapon, just a bit of a weaker one. So yeah, goes around there. And then we come to the Grancers, which pay 40 points for a 7-man squad that doesn't have any AT weapons, and that is like similar to the SAK. It's 1 more hit point, but less fighting capabilities. So that is not that great. They were cheaper in the past, they were really good then. But you need to get something out of the fighting capabilities, otherwise you just pay extra for that. And you kind of don't want to do that, because it's a recon squadron. And then, yeah, they can't protect themselves when they get in contact. Like, if you fight an enemy infantry, the enemy can just run away with the infantry, call in a vehicle, and kill you. And then you paid those extra points for the fighting capabilities for nothing, and they just die. The extra survivability can be nice on the defense, though. And like, if you have a good push going on as well. So it's not terrible, it's just not, it feels that amazing either. And Grenzerflamme, I would say these guys are a C tier unit now. Because the flamethrower is a low range and high aim time. Just makes it that these guys, for 60 points, you really need to get them into fighting. 60 points, like, you get a Fallschirmjäger Sprengtaucher for that price. And yes, they're a 7-man squadron, similar to the normal Grancer, but they're so overpriced for that. Like, 50 points, sure, and like, maybe. Like, then I would push them into B tier again, but they don't have AT weapon, they aren't that chunky with 7, they are just mediocre there. And you pay so much for the flamethrower that just doesn't do that much nowadays anymore. Because 350-meter range is actually pretty short, and then waiting 4 seconds, most likely even more, because you're stunned down a bit on that point, before they even start firing, it means that your guys are down to like 3 hit points before they even fire the flamethrower. So yeah, Currents of Flamme, not that great. Not that great. C tier here. Like, I would even put them behind here. I would even consider it just don't take these guys. And that's a shame. Like, Berliner Gruppierung doesn't need a useless unit, so I hope we can push them. Yeah, D tier here for Grenze Flamme. Just talk myself down on them even further. And then we have the next unit here with the mod Grenzer. And those are another weird unit, because they should be 20 points as well. Another Berliner Gruppierung unit that is just overpriced. And they are weaker than the scouts, weaker than all of these guys. They are still a recon unit, but let's just call them out on being overpriced. Let's put them into high C tier here, because they should be same as BGS, as National Guard scouts, as all the other guys up here, KDA of Fleur. And like, they're weaker than the scouts, yeah. The scouts at least have an MG, and these guys don't. So I don't quite think they should be the same price. And yeah, scouts are already, as I talked about earlier, not amazing, but they get the job done. But yeah, mod transfer don't really, and the division could use some slight price reductions. So yeah, yeah, Billionaire Group currently is suffering again. KSK, that's a Rügener Gruppierungsunit that is really solid. They are, in firepower wise, better than the Spezialaufklärer. They have an RPG, they have an extra hit point, and they have shock rate. Special forces, the SMGs plus explosives go well together as well. They don't have a GSR though, and that means they are not as amazing as a recon unit, but they are a really good fighting power force. So KSK goes well here, and I would put them in higher A tier. One of the really good units in Rügener Gruppierung, which Rügener has just one or two too few of to really click, but KSK, a really solid special forces unit, 7 hit points, and sets charges on RPG. The RPG is important so it doesn't get overrun. It's not a great one, but it is enough to keep them alive against light vehicles, and the other stuff really helps them out murdering infantry. And then the last one is the Pioneers, the Pioneer Aufklärungstaucher, and those are an 8-man squad with TNT, and we put stuff like that around here, and they go there as well. Yeah, they aren't, well, actually, yeah, they're similar here. 8 hit points. They don't have the special forces trait or anything. They don't have smoke, but they are chunky enough to just push them forward, and they can win the fights against other infantry there decently easily. It's just that, yeah, 50 points also means that you need to get them there, and they don't protect themselves against vehicles. If they would have an AT weapon, it would be 55 points. I think they would be better. But 50 points without the AT weapon is okay. It's a decent unit. And that brings us to the next, the Soviets, which start with Spetsnaz GRU, and that is a decent unit. That is pretty comparable to what we have up here. So yeah, let's put them up there as well. 75 points as well, and a sniper rifle with the SVD, and only 75 points. That is a really good unit. They can protect themselves in CQC, and they have an AK weapon, and they are priced nicely for it. So that is pretty nice. Then we have the Soviet Spetsnaz Sniperi. That's another one of these bad snipers. Don't take them. They are too low range. And then we get the Dejant. That's Redga. Where are they again? Here we go. Those for 100 points. Before they get nerfed lately, I put them into low A tier actually. Because I think a 10-man forward deploy combination of AT weapon, good firepower, and Nigla, so that they can deal with helicopters, was good. I still believe they're good. But 120 points is just so pricey for that now that they really have fallen off. Like 20 points is such a big nerf. Percentage-wise is not, maybe not that much, but it means that you can pay for half less infantry squad elsewhere. And that is quite big in the deployment phase. So Dejan Spetsnaz really has fallen. And for 120 points, I think they're overpriced. And I would put them here in the low B tier. I still believe there are scenarios where you want to take them. It just has become a lot fewer of them. As 120 points is just really expensive. And yeah, the utility of the unit itself is still there. It is similar issues then with this Aero Scouts GSR at this point though, because you might as well just buy 2 squads to do what they do. Which before just wasn't quite the case. It was close to that already, but it wasn't quite the case, and that was what kept them up there. Now it is the case. Just get 2 squads instead most of the time. So actually, yeah, put them in high C tier. Spetsnaz GRU with Stinger. that is doing similar jobs here, but it's basically the poor man's SAS. It has a stinger, a good RPG. It has smoke grenades, but it doesn't have the CQC power. But it also only costs you 60 points. And all those are... it can survive with its smoke grenades. It can kill enemy vehicles with the RPG. Only 500-meter range, but if the enemy is trying to push you over, they can kill it. The forward deploy is also really helpful there. And its stinger is a good manpad that can one-shot a lot of helicopters and two-shots all planes and helicopters outside of 810s and SU-25s. So that is really helpful as well. If you get two of those guys around, every plane has to be careful. And that really pushes the Spetsnaz GRU quite high up there into 8 here. And yeah, it is a really good squadron. And the ASVAL even means that enemy small recon squadrons pushing into them will take damage. 60 points means that you really don't want to use it in infantry fights, but it does the other jobs of a forward deploy annoyance that the enemy can't ignore really well, and that helps 56 a lot. So a good 8 here, little recon unit here. Next one, Spätzgruppe A, and that one really profits from the Law Edition. As before, I didn't like it too much. It is still pretty pricey. The Scorpion is still pretty bad, but if it gets into Scorpion and TNT range, it still wins the fights. And I think that's a high B tier special force at this point. Has the law, doesn't have GSR or anything. 10 hit points is nice though, but it also pays the price for them. And it's more expensive than something like the BGS or Jäger Aufklärers and so on by a good amount. But yeah, it's still a decent squadron now. Before, I really didn't like them. With the law, it actually means that they can protect themselves. Before, they were a 10-man squad, sure. And when they were in infantry fights, they were okay. But they were just got run over because the enemy just called in an infantry and then a vehicle to protect the infantry, and then they just got killed off and were a bit too pricey for that. Spets Retretka, that is a GSR unit. It has 2 more hit points than these guys up here, and it has a slightly better AT weapon, but it pays 5 points more. It doesn't have special forces, which just means it's a B tier kind of unit. 10 points less than the Fanspeer for a GSR as well, and the extra hit points are nice as well. So Spetsretka, still a decent unit. It's just not quite as good as the guys up there. Sure, it gets more hit points, but yeah, it doesn't get the special forces and the forward deploy. So yeah, goes in there. Then the normal Redredka. It has an 15 damage RPG with more range nowadays. The buff on the range really helped out. Still worse than the Eclairs, but better than the Aufklärer now. Even with the lower accuracy. But the extra range is way more important. So that helps out there. Recon Infantry Tierlist gets shock and forward deploy, but pays 45 points. And that is not great. 45 points is pretty expensive, and it's not that great for a 4-man squad. So, yeah, lower B tier here. It still is a unit that you can use. You just don't really feel amazing using them. The Dejon Fredredka, just pay the extra 5 points for it, and that's where they go around these guys here. Yeah. Oh no, they pay for the shock. They don't get the special forces and the forward deploy. So actually, they go lower as well. I messed it up there for a second. Yep, they go around here as well. Not great. Like, you don't need shock on the Dejon Redredka, and paying the 5 points for it is not great. Actually, we push them around here. They still have an AT weapon, so they're better than these two, but they have fewer hit points as well, so that's a trade-off, and it's not great. Dejon Redredka, that's the one everybody was freaked out about when they, for some reason, got more expensive. They fixed the price on it, and that just means they are a bit better mod Aufklärers. Similar weapon loadout, but a better RPG. So, yeah, just better mod Aufklärers here. Shock versus Resolute in the trade-off. And then we got normal mod Redredka, which basically are weaker mod Aufklärers because they don't get a Resolute trade. And yeah, that's outside of that same loadout. RT Radredka, they before were just a good bit better than the Civi. Now they have one less hit point and cost 10 points more for that AT weapon. The AT weapon is nice, um, but I still believe 50 points is maybe still a bit too pricey for that. I feel like 45 points is where they would really shine. As it's hard to get a network up with a 50-point recon units. Like, you don't want to bring out too many of them when they can't affect the front line. And also, 76 doesn't really need the capability of this. Like, this is not a slow grinding deck, and that's where this kind of ability, I believe, would be the best. Like, slower decks, and because that's where you can afford the network, and you can't really do that with the RT Radredka. So, I think the capability of itself is not that bad, but in the division it's not that great. So like yeah, the capability is B tier, and the capability in the deck is lower B tier in my eyes. Rachvetka Saperi, 55 points. Those guys are decent. They are 8-man squad with a TNT that is similar to these guys up there, but they do it for 5 points more. So I think we keep them around here. 55 points. Not great, not terrible. And then we come to the last nation with the British. And the British don't have actually that many Recon Infantry units yet. We will soon see more. First one is the Sniper. That is Assault Sniper unit. On par with these guys here. And they do the job well. So, yeah, Sniper unit. They have the firepower to do some stuff and the range for it. Better than these guys down here, especially as they pay 5 points less for it. SAS Patrol is the next unit. Has a sniper rifle as well, a long range one of that, and has TNT. It can't defend itself as well as some of the other GSR units. That is an issue, but it is still getting a bit of extra with the TNT, and that makes it better than the Dragon Power because it actually can win fights versus most infantry units in the CQC fight. And you can push them in that. You just don't want to do that. But yeah, GSR unit solid. TNT helps them out a bit. Scouts is the next unit. They only have a law, so they are the bottom end of the 35-point units here. They go behind the East German one, around the same point. Then we have the Mobile Scouts. They are 70 points nowadays. Though, yeah, this is actually a mistake here. Forgot I had to change these out as well before I had them into S tier. I believe they go into high 8 here now. Oh, where would we put them? I think I would put them around here still. They still go really well with the SAS. They have so much firepower, and they have an AT weapon now. So their biggest weakness got removed, and they deserve the move to 70 points for it. They are a really good unit with that. Like, the firepower of 4 MGs on this guy is still insane. They are survivable with 8 hit points, and they have an AT weapon. And yeah, they just delete other infantry units on a good medium range, and that is a strong thing to have. Scouts Law 80. You pay a good bit extra for that capability. 5 points extra even over the Scouts with the 84. But the Law 80 is also a decent weapon, so I would put them around the same area as the Airborne Scouts. The Law 80 for sure can help out there with the extra damage. And then the final one, the Terrier Scouts, 4 hit point Scouts for 20 points. Doesn't have the malus of the National Guard Scouts and the BGS Strifer. So yeah, that's a B tier unit with decent recon. Nothing super special, but it gets the job done. And that gets us to a long tier list that is even struggling to get on one screen. So here we go. Yeah, a really fun one, and a good amount of S tier units still left, but a good couple of them have been nerfed lately. Airmobile Scouts on 70 points, the Razvedkas from 100 to 120 points and so on have fallen off there. Even the Vulture Mega B1 not quite as hot there anymore in S tier as it had been before. And yeah, the lower end has come get closer together with the heavy buff and so on as well. It's just, yeah, a couple units still falling down to the bottom. But recon is important. Get enough recon around in your decks, guys. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you next time.